Akram and Abdur Rahman al-Fazari met in combat. Akram hamstrung Abdur Rahman's horse, but the latter managed to strike him with his lance and kill him. Abdur Rahman turned around riding Akram's horse. Abu Qatada, seeing this, got engaged in fierce combat with Abdur Rahman, smote him with his lance, and it was fatal. The polytheists consequently fled away, and I was in their pursuit until before sunset they reached a valley with a spring of water called Du-Kharid. They rested there to have a drink. I, however, running in hot pursuit, turned them out of the valley before they could drink a drop of water. Later on, the Prophet, PBUH, along with his companions, overtook me. I addressed him saying, "Messenger of Allah, let me select from our people 100 men and I will follow the marauders and finish them." In reply, the Prophet, PBUH, said, "Ibn al-Aqwa, you have taken enough, and so now you have to show magnanimity." Now they have reached the habitation of Ghatfan, where they are being feted. He added, saying, "Our best horseman today is Abu Qatada, and our best footman today is Salama." He allotted me 2 shares of the booty, the share meant for the horseman and the other meant for the footman, and combined both of them for me. Intending to return to Medina, he made me mount behind him on his she-camel called Al-Adba'. The conquest of Khaybar, in Muharram, 7a.h. Khaybar was a spacious, strongly fortified territory, studded with castles and farms, lying at a distance of 60 to 80 miles north of Medina, now a village known for its uncongenial climate. After Al-Hudaybiyah Treaty, the major party of the anti-Islam tripartite coalition, Quraysh, the Bedouin horde of Najd tribes and the Jews, was neutralized. Therefore, the Prophet, PBUH, deemed it an appropriate time to settle his affairs with the other 2 wings, the Jews and the Najd tribes, in order that peace and security could prevail and the Muslims may devote their time and effort in propagating the message of Allah and calling people to embrace it. Khaybar itself had always remained a hotbed of intrigue and conspiracy, and the Jews had always constituted it a source of military provocations and war instigation center, so it was given a top priority on the agenda of the Prophet's compelling exigencies. The Jews of Khaybar had united by an ancient alliance with the Confederates, triggered Bani Qurayza to practice treachery, maintained contacts with Ghatfan and the Arabians, and they even devised an attempt at the Prophet's life. In fact, the continual afflictions that the Muslims had sustained were primarily attributable to the Jews. Envoys were repeatedly sent to them for peaceful settlement, but all in vain. Consequently, the Prophet, PBUH, came to the conclusion that a military campaign was a must in order to forestall their hostilities. Interpreters of the Noble Quran suggest that capturing Khaybar had been a divine promise implied in Allah's words, "Allah has promised you abundant spoils that you will capture, and He has hastened for you this." Al-Quran 48:20, i.e., Al-Hudaybiyah Peace Treaty and the surrender of Khaybar. The hypocrites and people weak of heart had hung back from joining the true Muslims in Al-Hudaybiyah campaigns, so now Allah, the Almighty, inculcated the following words in His Prophet's ears: "Those who lagged behind will say, when you set forth to take the spoils, allow us to follow you." They want to change Allah's words. Say, "You shall not follow us," thus Allah has said beforehand. Then they will say, "Nay, you envy us." Nay, but they understand not except a little. Al-Quran 48:15. For this reason, the Prophet, PBUH, invited only those who were willing to fight in the cause of Allah to accompany him in his march against Khaybar. 1,400 men only, who had sworn allegiance in response to his call. Meanwhile, Siba bin Arfada al-Ghafari was chosen to run the affairs of Medina. Another incident of high significance is noteworthy, namely the Islamization of Abu Huraira, a venerable Muslim scholar and an authentic narrator of the prophetic traditions. The hypocrites of Arabia took notice of the fresh Islamic intentions, so they began to alert the Jews to the imminent military activities. Their chief, Abdullah bin Ubay, delegated an envoy to the Jews of Khaybar, warning them against the dangers approaching, and nerving them to resist the Muslims as they outnumbered the latter and were better equipped. On hearing the news, the Jews dispatched Kanana bin Abi al-Huqaq and Hawda bin Qais to their former allies, the tribe of Ghatfan, requesting military assistance, promising to grant them half the yield of the fruit that their farms could yield if they managed to beat the Muslims. The Prophet marched by way of Isra mountain and then went forward with the army till he halted in a valley called Araji, encamping between Khaybar and Ghatfan so as to prevent the latter from reinforcing the Jews. The guides accompanying him led him to an intersection from which branched out 3 roads with different designations, all leading to his destination. He abstained from following the first 2 roads on grounds of their ominous designation, and chose the third for its propitious indications. It is noteworthy that some interesting incidents featured the Muslims' march towards Khaybar, of which we mention the following. 1. It has been narrated on the authority of Salama bin al-Aqwa, who said, "We marched upon Khaybar with the Messenger of Allah, PBUH. We journeyed during the night. One of the men said to my brother, 'Amir, won't you recite to us some of your verses, Amir?' So he began to chant his verses to urge the camels, reciting, 'O Allah, if you had not guided us, we would have neither been guided rightly nor practiced charity, nor offered prayers. We wish to lay down our lives for you, so forgive you our lapses, and keep us steadfast when we encounter our enemies. Bestow upon us peace and tranquility.' Behold, when with a cry they called upon us to help. 2. The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, said, 'Who is this driver of the camels?' They said, 'It is Amir.' He said, 'Allah will show mercy to him.' A man said, 'Martyrdom is reserved for him, O Messenger of Allah, would that you had allowed us to benefit ourselves from his life.' Sahih al-Bukhari 2603, Sahih Muslim 2115. The Prophet's companions had already known that he would never invoke Allah's mercy upon a close companion, but to single him out for martyrdom. Sahih Muslim 2115. 3. On their way down a valley, the Muslims began to entertain Allah's greatness, shouting at the top of their voices, 'Allah is great, Allah is great, there is no God but Allah.' The Prophet, PBUH, asked them to lower down their voices, saying, 'The one you are invoking is neither absent nor deaf, he is close to you, all hearing.' Sahih al-Bukhari 2605, 4. In a spot called as Sabah, not far from Khaybar, the Prophet, PBUH, observed the afternoon prayer, then he called his companions to have whatever food provisions they had. What they brought was too scanty to satisfy them all. The Prophet took it by his hand and it immediately grew in quantity, so they all ate to their fill. Shortly afterward, he and the others rinsed their mouths and performed the evening prayer without ablution. Sahih al-Bukhari 2603, he did the same for the night prayer. Maghazi al-Waqidi p.112. The following morning, at sunrise, the Muslims encountered the Jews when they had come out about their jobs with their axes, spades and strings, driving their cattle along. They began to shout in surprise, 'Muhammad has come along with his force.' The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, said, 'Allah is great, Khaybar shall face destruction. Behold, when we descend in the city center, it will be a bad day for those who have been warned, but have not taken heed.' Sahih al-Bukhari 2603, 604. For encampment, the Prophet, PBUH, had chosen a certain plot of land he deemed suitable to serve as the headquarters of his army. However, a veteran fighter of his called Ubab bin al-Mundhir suggested that they, under the exigencies of war requirements and for the sake of providing maximum logistic facilities, shift to another place. On approaching the vicinity of Khaybar, the Prophet ordered his troops to halt, and began to invoke his Lord, saying, O Allah, Lord of the seven heavens and what they harbor beneath, Lord of the seven earths and what lies in their wombs, Lord of devils and whomsoever they have led astray, we beseech you to grant us the good of this village, Khaybar, the good of its inhabitants and the good that lies in it. We seek refuge with you from the evil of this village, the evil of its inhabitants, and the evil that lies in it. Then he ordered, now march towards the village, in the name of Allah. Ibn Hisham 2:329, the banner the Prophet, PBUH, declared would be entrusted to a man who loves Allah and His Messenger, and they, Allah and His Messenger, love him. All the Muslims came forward in the following morning hoping to be granted the honor of carrying the banner. The Prophet, PBUH, called for Ali bin Abi Talib, whose eyes used to hurt, and handed it to him. Ali, on his part, pledged he would fight the enemies until they embraced Islam. The Prophet, PBUH, answered him saying, take things easy, and invite them to accept Islam and brief them on their duties towards Allah. I swear by Allah that if only one should be guided through your example, that would surely outweigh the best of our camels. Sahih al-Bukhari 2505, 606 Khaybar, it seems, was split into two parts with 5 forts in the first. Naim, Asab bin Wad,